Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my purple song, Home. I am joined again by the X.
Jesus Christ, I hate that word. Why do we gotta use that word? My name is Jay. Thank you. I was messing with you.
Okay.
Now I give it a little static.
All right. So, if you've been watching this series, then you already know that we've been having some real conversations, nothing surface level, not highlight reels, but honest conversations about healing, relationships, and what it takes to move forward. Now, in the previous episode, I talked about the fear of moving on and forgiveness. We broke down what that was, what happens, or no, why it happens rather, and what it takes to start healing. But today, we are going to go a little bit further. And because understanding something and actually living it are two completely different things. So you can let go, or you can know that you need to let go and still struggle to do that. And you can understand forgiveness, but still feel pain. So today, this conversation is about what it looks like after that realization, after the breakup, after the clarity, after the lesson. Because the truth is that healing doesn't happen in one moment, it happens in layers. So let's start here. People talk about letting go, but they don't talk about what happens after you let go. Because after you decide to move on, there's still the silence. There's still moments where your mind will travel back. Healing is not saying, "Oh, I'm over it." You're fooling yourself if you think that way. Healing is, I'm choosing not to go back. And that's a daily decision. You can talk about pre-me, post-me, or post-me, meaning, what you may have recently gone through. But when everything was said and done, what part of moving on surprises you the most?
That's a difficult question, depending on what stage I'm referring to. Because each breakup had its own set of circumstances and tolls. But I would definitely say it's really liberating to be able to kind of allow yourself to kind of deep dive and go into that space, and really extract what's needed in order for you to move forward. And you don't really, I take that back. You don't really truly realize how resilient you are. That's probably one of the things that's really, 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 truly surprising. Like you don't understand the level of resiliency you have until you're actually in those situations and you have to really face all of these different things that internally you're dealing with. And it may be a little bit easier depending on what side of the coin you were. Whether you were the villain or the hero. So I imagine for some people it's a little bit different, but I would say in our relationship and my most recent one, I would say the overarching theme is definitely resiliency, because again, our lives are so intertwined, and to be able to come out of that and really, again, sort through all of the gambit of emotions that you deal with, and then learn to find, redefine your own identity, which is for a lot of people the most difficult part, because again, you become this singular collective, and then you become ingratiated with one another and so used to doing everything as one entity. You have to go through a whole period of rediscovery, and that can be very jarring. I would definitely say my most recent endeavor, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit more, but yeah, it was a lot of rediscovery.
A lot of people think that the hardest part about leaving is staying gone. There is a lot of doubling back. So what are your thoughts on that?
Do you really want to deep dive into that?
Why not?
Because we definitely, there was a portion of, and it wasn't, I want to say it wasn't a lengthy period of time. Well, I would say two things.
Listen, let me stop you right there, because let me turn to the camera and say this. Before we started recording, I said, "Did you look at Sunday's video?"
I was busy.
Okay, Mr. Busy, I talked about us going back a little bit.
Okay.
So I've already touched on that. You think he's spilling tea? You ain't spilling no tea.
I was not trying to spill the tea.
I told people that there was a short stint.
Yes, it was.
That
it was.
We did try to make things work.
Yeah.
So there you go. There you go.
Yes.
But
yes.
So, what are your thoughts about that? Like, I do know how hard it is to break up with somebody and you're still holding on to hope. Let's be honest.
Yes, ma'am.
A lot of people that say they've moved on, but emotionally, they're still attached.
Absolutely.
And that's why we sort of doubled back when we first broke up. So, and you can let go, because I'm talking in general now.
Absolutely.
You can let go of somebody physically, but mentally, we're still replaying things in our head. I feel as if people do not process pain the way they should, or I can say we. We avoid the truth a lot of times, or we're still looking for closure. So do you think that, this is two questions, doubling back, what are your thoughts on that? And then do you think that people confuse time passing with actual healing? The reason why they double back.
Okay, so I definitely want to touch on those two points. What was the first question again?
What are your thoughts on people that go back to Mr. or Mrs.?
Okay, so so two things. Yes, to answer your question, first things first. When we actually came to a point, when it came to a point where we really truly decided, okay, we've reached our ceiling. I think there were some, I guess, extenuating circumstances, because we were kind of like, living with each other for a little bit. And so I think it's important to note that, because we still had direct access to one another, even though we had reached our ceiling in terms of the relationship. So yes, so you have that part, right? And then you have the emotional and physical investment that obviously we spent, an exorbitant amount of time with one another. I mean, we're talking about literally close to a decade, right? And it's one of those things, T, where like you can sit up here and tell someone how you're going to deal with these things, but you don't know what you don't know until you're actually going through it. And I think for a lot of people, it looks entirely different when you are at a place where it's like, okay, how am I going to navigate this new reality? And to be quite honest with you, yes, there was a level of comfort that we had with one another, even though we, again, from a relationships, perspective, we had, reached, that proverbial fork in the road. But there was a level of comfort that we had with one another, whether it's emotionally, whether it was, and let's just be honestly, physically and sexually. That's just what it was. Like, we knew each other for a long period of time. So it's easy to kind of I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. I don't want to say regress, but kind of like God,
fall into old habits.
Relapse. It's easy to kind of relapse to a level of comfort because, like, again, I've known this person for a long time. So I think in large part that was kind of, and again, you got to think, T, like a lot of the things that we know now as adults, a lot of the different things that we have in our tool belts mentally in terms of how we navigate life wasn't conversations or things that we knew back then. So we literally were navigating these things literally on the fly. I think that juxtaposed now, we would probably do things a lot differently because we know a little bit better. But we cannot negate the emotional impact when it comes to somebody that you have been with for such a long time. You can't negate that, no matter how hard you try. So I think there's that point. Now I want to also note, and I think it's important for the audience to understand this, because this is something that I've told people, and it's the honest to God truth. When we really truly got to a point where like this is it, we have never had a conversation about reconciliation. Literally, we've never talked about, hey, let's revisit this. Like when we really knew that this is finite and this is it, we've never had a conversation about, let's spin this block.
A true story.
You know what I mean? So,
but even though people will swear up and down,
they swear that we did, and I was like, and I tell people like all the time, like me and Toya never had that conversation. Yeah. Yes, there was a period of time where again we were trying to sort out this new reality, but once we got to a place where we knew that was it, that was it. Yeah. There was no revisiting anything, and I think that was a really big misconception in my previous relationship. Because I was like, you have no idea. Like, we've never had that conversation. It was just always a mutual comfort and respect that we have for one another that made us be able to navigate things the way that we did. Because I'd known you for so long. And there was a lot of trust that I had, with you that I hadn't necessarily developed in my at the time current endeavor, and I think that was problematic in its own right.
Oh, that's a whole nother video.
That part. Yes.
Second question was?
Yeah, second question. I'm sorry, y'all. Getting old.
Second question was, do you think that people confuse time passing with healing?
Absolutely. But they will soon learn that time and the actual work are two totally separate things.
Two totally different things.
Two totally separate things. And I will use this, and I will use this. I had a conversation with a friend of mine. I'm not going to get into the copious details of it all, but it was kind of something similar. But her situation was a little bit more traumatic because of the way her relationship dissolved. Unfortunately, he passed away. But one of the things that I often explain to her in relation to this particular topic is and I had to do this. I would specifically use us, and especially I was definitely in my last relationship, and I tell people this all the time. The only way that you're going to get to a place of comfort, healing, whatever it is that looks like for you, you have got to embrace that pain, man. There's no way around it. You gotta embrace it. You have to allow it to flow through you. And and when you do, again, you'll come to learn that level of resiliency, that all of us have, that we don't necessarily know that exists until we channel it. And then more importantly, that other component that you talked about, the time part, starts to come into play, because you're allowing yourself to funnel this energy, and then the more you do it, in conjunction with the time, is when the healing starts.
Yep, because I often say time does not heal what you do not confront.
No, that facts, 100% facts. So I agree.
And a lot of times we stay stuck because we are afraid to be alone. We don't trust ourselves to choose better sometimes, or we're still holding on to what could have been.
I would say that latter part is definitely without question. You're because when it's almost like, I imagine a breakup, to me, I imagine, is almost the equivalency of when a person passes away. Hear me out. Because now your life starts to flash before your eyes, and you start to see all of these different things, like, man, what I could have done better, what I could have said better. Those scenarios start to play in your head. And so even, again, the same thing with relationships is like, man, I could have done this better, blah, blah, blah. That definitely becomes a factor.
All right, so let's talk about forgiveness for a second. We touched on it a little bit the last time we were together. But let's talk about it from a different place. So, not the idea of forgiveness, but the practice of it. Because forgiveness sounds good, right? So, until we have to keep choosing it. Because you can't just say, I forgive someone, and then when that person comes around, you're just like, I can't make that face. Some days you're okay, some days you're not, because you remember everything. Because there were days that looking at your face made my blood boil. It did. I'm not even gonna lie. And that's where people think that you're not healed, but it's not failure though. It's that process that you go through. So in my last video, I said, forgive as the Lord forgave you. And that's not a one-time action. That's a posture that you have to take. So my question to you is, did forgiveness feel like a one-time moment for you? And not even specifically our relationship, but does forgiveness feel like a one-time moment for you, or something you have to keep choosing? I just want your take on it, because I already gave mine, of course.
Well, I mean, so I would say, here's the thing, and I get the saying that which you just alluded to, forgiving, the way God forgives us. But I think one of the most, important components to extract from that is that we ain't God, right? We're human beings. And, obviously the way he deals with things is completely different than the way we deal with it.
Amen to that.
And I would say I would liken it to someone who is an actual addict. And if you were to speak to people who are actually addicted to whatever vice that it is, they're constantly trying to, suppress or work on whatever it is, to keep them from going and, obviously back in the direction they don't want to go into. I think the same thing can be said about our emotions in terms of forgiveness. It's not the fact that we haven't come to an understanding that we want to forgive this person. I think what we're negating is that there are always things from time. I wouldn't say always, but there can be things from time to time that invoke emotions that make you go back to a place where I'm like, oh my God, I know I forgave this person, but you were a piece of, POS, right? And so I think it's really just that. I think the forgiveness part of you really, really seeking God, going into, you know what I'm saying, with going within yourself and saying, hey, you know what, I've forgiven this person. This was a chapter in my life. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, there's another component where that person is showing a level of contrition, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we're more so speaking towards the more emotional aspect that gets, this word I hate, triggered. I actually use electric sensations in my therapy sessions because I hate that word. Neither here nor there. But all of that to say, I think that is what we see, get exuded as separate from the fact that, we've forgiven somebody. And that happens, man. You know what I mean? Again, it's not like we broke up in a way where we just listened. We came to a point where we no longer wanted to do this. Mm-hmm. There were some very, very severe, egregious acts that led to that. And so I can understand how you got to a place where, you're like, oh man, I don't even look at this person's face.
Forgiveness does not mean that you don't feel it anymore, and but it does mean that I'm not going to let whatever happened or that person control me anymore. Because forgiveness, it can take over a whole new meaning. And it can control your life if you do not just let things go and find a way to forgive that person.
So let me ask you this. On the flip side, what was it? I mean,
you interviewing me now?
No, I'm not interviewing you, but I think it kind of begs the question, because again, we had a long tenure. So when we speak about forgiveness, and again, it could be a multitude of things, but I being a little bit presumptuous, assuming, I would imagine that the overarching theme that really, really kind of stuck with you, was the compromisation of the fidelity of our relationship, correct? Was there more? Were there other things that I had done?
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
That you felt like, you were really, really grasping and holding on to? Because again, I don't know these things. I know that component.
Well, you know why everything started. Do you remember that?
I probably have a little bits and pieces.
It wasn't even the infidelity.
Okay.
Jay, we have talked about this. So it started with, we were together for 7 years.
Okay, yeah, okay. I got you. All right, I need that. Getting
we were playing house.
Right. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how it started, and then it just snowballed.
Wow, okay. That's fair.
All right, so let's get to the moving on part. Because sometimes it doesn't always look like how people expect it to.
Right.
Sometimes moving on looks like not responding, not revisiting old conversations, not checking up on them, and not reopening doors that you've already closed. Mm-hmm. It looks like discipline, not just healing.
Right.
So what boundaries has helped you actually move forward, whether it's from me or anybody else?
I always say with anything, like, I avoid things by avoiding things. Now, as it relates to the breakup, for us, so much, you got to think, I got into another relationship afterwards. So
And we'll talk about that
Right.
in another video.
Yes. I got into another relationship, but I mean, I think for us though, T, like and I know this is hard to say, like the respect was always there to, you know what I'm saying, to an extent. And I think, without saying certain things, like we kind of navigated it in a way where, we just respectfully just didn't cross any boundaries. I don't know if a lot of thought was put into it at that time. I just think it was just more so just understanding that, hey, again, we this is our reality. This is the space that we're in. And again, as I mentioned before a little bit earlier, like once we got to that place, it was just, I don't know, man. It was just something that it was just a path that we charted. But I would say, like, at this particular stage in life, you know what I mean? Because I'm very, very, I have a pulse on certain things that I do or don't do. And it's just a matter of just, man, again, man, just putting things in perspective. And again, avoiding, going down certain roads that I feel that, number one, there's no need for me to go down there because there's just no need. And number two, like, I don't want to, put myself in a situation where it really can become problematic. Whereas I'm compromising myself and I'm compromising, this new reality that I've created with this person. And so I would say more specifically for you and I think a lot of time has elapsed. I think I have without question an understanding of where we are, who we are as individuals, and how I want that to look moving forward. So I always just make sure I just, I always, again, maintain a certain level of respect. I don't call you, or at certain times in your life, I don't pop over at your house or do anything. I'm not going to, again, put myself in a position where I feel like I would do something that will compromise anything. I think we're well beyond that, personally. So I that's what, for me, that's the way it looks like. If that makes any sense.
And so touching on something that you said just now, but when we first broke up and you moved out, that's when I was really truly able to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
Because you weren't there.
Right
here. Not that you were in my face anyway, but you're still occupying a space with someone.
Right.
But I want people to know that you can still forgive someone and not have access to them.
Mm-hmm.
Because forgiveness is internal work and access is a choice.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
So I just want people to understand that. And the bravest thing that you can do is to walk away from someone and stay gone. And I know it's hard. Lord knows I know it's hard. But that's so brave to do something like that.
I think it speaks to the level of maturity that we had too. I mean, you got to think about it, and I think that's such a poignant statement that you made. Like, again, obviously we were at a point in time we were obviously in close proximity, but I think once we without question, and take this for whatever it is, but once we really started to limit/close the level of access that we allow with one another, I think that totally changed the landscape of, what I'm saying, us being able to move forward. And I think I think, to be quite honest with you, like it wasn't even something that was necessarily said. I think it was just a natural arc that it kind of took.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it was just and then again, I think in our own little way, we were observant enough to realize that this is the direction that our relationship is taking, specifically, like you said, when we moved on, because now it's really, really a new reality. We're no longer seeing each other on the day-to-day. we're charting our own course. We're living our own lives, and that just allowed us to kind of, change our headlights in terms of the direction that we were going. So yeah, I think that was really probably one of the defining moments for us. But I would say even well before that, we were already charting that course. It was just the proximity thing that we had, because we didn't delve too much into that space. You know what I mean? Of having access to each other. There may be a little few times here and there it was convenient, but I think we knew, like, this is not a space that we want to stay in long.
Yeah.
It was a very natural progression.
All right, so there is a shift that happens. And if you've experienced it, at some point you stop reacting emotionally, you stop replaying everything, you stop needing answers. And that is something that we sort of just touched on, is when you have that space. And forgiveness comes into play, but then the peace starts to set in. You start choosing peace, not because everything was resolved, but because you decided that I deserve peace more than I need answers. When did you feel that shift? And I already know your answer to this because you told me recently. And where it wasn't about the past anymore.
So I will say this. I think this is a little twofold for me. I don't remember when. I've had this conversation a multitude of times with people when I talk about certain relationships that I went in, and specifically ours. I don't remember where I was specifically, but there was. I don't know. I don't want to say it was an epiphany, but I had this moment where literally I had a shift. And again, you ask anybody who knows me when I talk about this conversation, it was just a shift where I knew that those feelings for me were gone. I won't say they were gone. I just knew that there was a shift and I was moving in this direction. Now, I always tell people this. I can't, even as I speak to you, even as I sit in your presence, even as, obviously take an opportunity to share this with you. I shared a very large chapter in my life with you that will always reside in me to the day I leave this earth. I'm going to always have a level of love for you until the day I leave this earth. I think that love just happens to look different from what it was when we were together. Mm-hmm. And so when I say that shift, that's specifically what I'm more so leaning towards. Whereas I literally see this person as this, as opposed to what was. Mm-hmm. And there was definitely a shift. And I don't think, I'm gonna be totally honest with you, and this speaks to more what we were talking about earlier. I don't think you can get to a level of healing the way that you and I have, and be able to share the level of proximity that we have if you have not done that. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you have not come to that moment where you see it through that lens, it will be very difficult for you. Now, if I'm going to be totally candid for the audience, again, they may or may not know this. I had went through a really, really, really difficult breakup a few years ago. And I can tell you right now, even though I have gotten to a place where the reality that I've accepted for that for a lot of different reasons, but I don't know if I could do what I'm doing with you now with the person that I was with. And for a lot of different reasons. I've had a shift, but not necessarily in the way that I would have wanted it to. And I think, I'll be totally honest with you if I have to rewind this take back a little bit. What really, I always tell people this. the death of a relationship, the true death of a relationship is when you find out that person is with someone else. That was when it really, really hit home for me with, as far as us.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, this person has moved on. And that literally was when I the shift. I have not experienced that with my previous.
But and it's so I already knew. So I knew you were going to say because you told me that before.
Yes.
And I dated somebody in the past too that said that they actually got with their person because they saw that I had moved on, and I'm just like, why do y'all do that?
But wasn't
no,
the case.
listen, Linda.
Yeah.
So, do you know that person though that you're referring to did not come along until like 5 years after we broke up?
Oh yeah. Without question.
Because I did the work.
I'm just simply saying that was just the way that I felt.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because I again, when you come to that realization, yeah, it definitely hits home. It hits a little bit differently. You know what I mean? And it's such an odd thing to. That is such a odd thing because again, we were together for so long, and that was probably the first time. That was the first time that I've actually experienced something to that degree with someone that I had been with for that long.
Yeah.
And to realize that, like, man, I'm no longer associated with this person on a multitude of levels, and to know that this is the shift, and you know what I'm saying, she's charting a new path and experiencing someone else. Jesus Christ, man. That is a weird thing, man. My God. Yeah.
It's life, my boy.
Bro, that is, man, that is such a weird thing, man. It's such a weird thing.
All right, so we've had about 30 minutes of conversation off camera.
That part. Juicy details.
Coming up with all sorts of new videos.
I want my restitution.
Okay. I'll pay you. But I want people to take the time to really ask themselves, am I healed or just distracted? Am I at peace or am I just avoiding? Am I holding on or actually trusting God with the outcome? Because healing is not just emotional, it's spiritual. God is not asking you to carry hurt forever. He's asking you to release it.
Amen.
And trust that what's meant for you will not require you to stay broken. Do you believe that some relationships end for a bigger purpose?
Absolutely. I mean, it can be said. I mean, I know I know we try to, tie certain things into certain things biblically. I mean, so many biblical narratives that show, how one situation led to the ascension of this person being in this position. I think it can be. I think the same thing can be said about relationships. Off camera we kind of talk about those things, but especially at this stage in our lives, being obviously in our mid-40s, we just see life through a totally different lens. Yeah, I mean, and we don't got to get. I'm not gonna get all philosophical, but it's just something as simple as, and again, the way we spoke off the camera is that the version of, we said this earlier, like it wasn't that we met, it wasn't that we were valued for each other. We just met each other at the wrong time, and the version of, know what I'm saying, Tori Nicole and Jamad is two totally different people compared to when we first met, fresh out of college, me joining the military, to the man right now. We're totally different people. And whomever, you know, intersects our path in our future, they're going to get a much wiser, smarter, you know, seasoned individual who is a byproduct of a lot of different things. And there's something to be said about, you know, how God orchestrates that. You know, so I think it's fair to say that, absolutely.
Yeah, the next video that we are going to talk about, and I know that my last video that I put out this past week, I talked about, I said we were going to mention about healing and taking baggage into a new relationship, but that's actually going to be the next video, because that's something that we went off on a tangent on a little bit ago, but yeah, we have a lot to talk about.
That's all right. Copious details.
But yeah, healing is just something that is so important to be able to move on and just be okay in life. I'm more concerned about just being okay. I don't know if you said this or not, but I would rather be single for the rest of my life than to not be okay up here. Because I look at couples now and some of the things that they go through, I don't miss it. Do I miss being in a relationship? Absolutely. Absolutely. And eventually I do want to be in one. But the toll that it takes on your mental can be just so great that you have to be stable before you get into one.
Absolutely.
Like, you have to do the work and take care of yourself before you jump into something else. And I don't want to get, you know, on that topic just yet, but
listen, Nas said it best. The only thing worse than being alone is wishing you were. You know what I mean? And you know, I'm sorry, I'll pull from a lot of philosophical people, but you know, one of my favorite quotes by Bruce Lee, he says that, you know, I don't pray for an easy life, pray for, you know what I'm saying, the ability and the mental fortitude to be able to navigate a difficult one. And that just speaks to what you just said. You know, relationships, the relationships are what they are. You know, it is a construct that we create, you know what I'm saying, between two individuals. You have to develop the tools necessary in order to navigate it. And if you do that, you know, it can be whatever you want it to be. But that's the pertinent part, and it starts with you know, we talked about, you know, the theme of today's subject, which is you have to heal. And I think for a lot of people, it's just them jumping in and out of relationships and not necessarily taking the proper time to really address a lot of the internal turmoil, which obviously bleeds into other relationships and then becomes this, you know, cyclical thing. So gotta do the work, man.
Thank you
Absolutely.
for coming back, and you will be here
Yes, ma'am.
again. We were talking off camera and coming up with a lot of video ideas, because this relationship thing is deep, and who better else to talk about it than two people that were in a relationship
That part.
that have gone their separate ways and been with other people and experienced a whole nother set of issues and solutions and just...
My God.
But anyway, thank you for this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
So, no problem. Everyone out there, if this message spoke to you, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share this message with someone that you feel could benefit from this message. Because what we are talking about here, it's about real life. It's about everyday life. And a lot of people are silently going through their own battles and handling it themselves. When they really do need to involve someone else or hear someone else's perspective. And so that's why we're here. So we will be back next week. We will continue this series and have real conversations because healing does not stop here.
Amen.
So you are growing, you are learning, you are becoming, like my Shiro Michelle Obama would say, you are becoming. Even when it feels uncomfortable, even when the progress feels slow, that doesn't mean that it's not working. It just means it's going to take you a little bit longer to get where you need to get. So just remember this, though. You were given this life because you were strong enough to live it. Everybody have a great week, a blessed week, and I pray for everybody's safety and well-being. So I love you. I will talk to you later. Bye for now.